This podcast is part of the Spoon Podcast Network, home of smart conversations that feed your mind.
Hi, I'm Amy Wu, and welcome again to Women Innovators in Food and Farming, where I spotlight some of the entrepreneurs and innovators behind the technology, innovation shaping the future of food and farming. I'm an award-winning journalist, specializes in writing about food and ag innovation. I am really excited to have with me today our guest, Gretchen Aro. First, a short intro, and then we're just going to jump right into the conversation. Gretchen's the co-owner of Pacific Sea Farms in Oregon. She has spent her 35-year career managing projects from land use development to film and video production to fundraising. She's lived on Vachon Island for over 24 years and has dedicated much of her time and energy to supporting that community through her volunteer work. She is very committed to environmental and human health issues on the island and the Puget Sound region. And this led her to co-found Pacific Sea Farms. In addition to working at the farm, she liaisons with local schools and community groups to raise awareness about the benefits of kelp and shellfish farming. So really excited to have you here today, Gretchen. It's really exciting to connect with you.
Great.
Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about where you're joining us from today.
Yeah. So one correction, I'm actually from Washington State.
Gotcha.
They
Okay.
do sea farming down in Oregon, but they are not allowed to do it in the water. They do it in big bins on the shore. So
Oh, good to know.
We're in Puget
Mhm.
Sound, Washington. I'm calling from Vashon Island, and that's where I've lived for the last 24 years.
Hey, tell us a little bit about that island and how you ended up there.
Yeah, I was born in the Puget Sound area, grew up in Seattle, and I knew I wanted to live out on Vashon. I had visited a few times with friends when I was in high school, and I got back here after college, and I kept coming out to visit. And when I got married, I just decided I want to start looking out there and move out there. It's kind of a perfect location. It's very rural. It's a close knit community. There are 10,000 people here. It's the size of Manhattan, but we've got 10,000 people. But we are 20 minutes from Seattle, which is a great and large city. So we have the best of both worlds here.
That's amazing. Now, tell us a little bit about how you started Pacific Sea Farms, maybe a little bit more about Pacific Sea Farms.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll tell you what we are first. We are a shellfish and kelp farm, and we're located off the southwest shore of Vashon Island. And we grow sugar kelp, which grows naturally in Puget Sound, and we grow three types of oysters. And the way we got into this was kind of random. My business partner, Mike, who is also my ex-husband, and we have three kids together. He was listening to a podcast called Freakonomics that probably a lot of your
Oh,
listeners
yeah.
have heard of. And there was a guy named Bren Smith who lives over on the East Coast, and he had started farming sugar kelp. And then he started an organization called Green Wave that supports sugar kelp farmers. And the way he talks about sugar kelp farming, it just makes you want to do it. At the time that Mike heard that podcast, we were sending our youngest kid off to college, and I was doing film and video production part time, and I knew I was going to have this big chunk of time because our kids they're out of the house, and I had decided I was going to volunteer in some way, shape, or form in my community, and I knew it was going to have something to do with the environmental health of this area. And when Mike started talking about the kelp farming and pitching this idea, I realized, whoa, I can do that and I can make some money while I am doing this great thing for
Mm.
the environment. So it was kind of, it was the best of both worlds. It's a job, I make money, and it's incredible for the environment and
Yes,
for our habitat. So.
that sounds amazing. Tell us a little bit more about kelp farming. Like what is it? Maybe walk us through the sequence of how you do it.
Yeah. It's first of all, I mean, the first thing I want to say is it's fun, but it's also it's hard. It's physically hard. It's a winter sport. You plant the kelp in November and you harvest it in March or April. And for anyone who's lived in the Pacific Northwest, those are not like sunny months here. So it's basically what we do is we have a hatchery at our house, and we grow the baby kelp there, and we take it out to our lines, and we plant it on the lines, and then we watch it grow. And sugar kelp grows really quickly. From when we plant it in November to when we harvest it in March or April, it can grow about 10 feet, sometimes 12 feet. So it's a very fast growing crop. So we plant it and then we just are out there 4 to 5 times a week looking at the kelp and just kind of admiring it, making sure that all of the lines
Mm.
are working as they should, all the equipment's working. And then we harvest it when it's ready. And
Wow, that sounds it sounds pretty straightforward, and I think it's something new to a lot of folks, right, who are not as familiar with. Would you consider as part of aquaculture? Pretty
yeah,
much,
sugar kelp is
yeah.
part of the aquaculture industry.
Hmm.
It's a newer part of the industry, especially in Washington State. So seaweed is farmed all over the world. It's a $50 billion industry, but the United States is just starting to grow sugar kelp and other seaweeds. So it started on the East Coast. We have a lot of farms up in Alaska. We have farms in Oregon, but like I
Hmm.
said, they're onshore. And then we have a lot of farms in British Columbia, Canada, that we are all in the Salish Sea over here. And so
Hmm.
they're up north in the Salish Sea and we're down south. So,
So, what are some of the challenges in terms of kelp farming, and how do you manage that? I mean, in terms of farming broadly, there's the aspect of, irrigation, right? And also monitoring the soil. In this case, there
right.
is no soil. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and opportunities within that.
Okay, I'm glad you're asking me this because we have a lot of people come to us because they're like, I'm going to start a kelp farm. And that's really exciting. And we always want to support them. And we do support them. But there are a lot of challenges. They're not bad things, but they are challenges. One, just getting a permit in Washington State because there we were the first permit in our county, and we're one of three kelp farms that have been permitted in the state. And so the permit process was great. We got to meet a lot of great people, but it was a lot of work. Um, then building the farm can be a financial challenge.
Hmm.
And then once you have the actual farm in the water, to be honest, outside of just that it is very hard work, there aren't a ton of challenges because we don't use inputs. All we need is salt water and we need sun. We don't use fresh water. We don't irrigate the crops at all. They grow in salt water naturally. We don't put any pesticides or we don't have to fertilize them in any way. So there are no inputs.
Mm.
So once it's in the water, the challenges really are just the physical challenges. And then, of course, in all farming, obviously, things can go wrong. You could have a crop failure. We could have a really big storm that might damage some of our crops. So that's one of the reasons that we do shellfish and seaweed. If one crop happened to not work, we've got
Mhm.
three types of oysters. So we've always got a crop to sell, is the plan.
Yeah, amazing. So, in terms of the you mentioned some of the challenges could be the weather as well, and with the realities of climate change. What are some of the cases where you have you had any crop failure? I mean, meaning years when you've had a big storm, or what? And what have you done about that?
Right. So this is our first year. We just harvested in April, and that was our first harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that crop grew great. We tried it out on one line, and we started with a baby step because we wanted to make sure that this was going to work well before we invested a bunch of money. Um, so that went great. The potential for a big storm is obviously real, but we have very, very strong currents where we are.
Hmm.
And this year, the kelp held onto those lines through these very strong currents. And so we're feeling pretty confident that we will do okay, and our kelp will do well in extreme weather. Um, what else did you ask me? I can't remember.
Yeah, that answers some of it. You know, it's your first year, I'm hearing, and it did really well, which is great. In terms of harvest, so you've completed harvesting it, and where does it go afterwards?
Yeah, so we did our first harvest, and that was, it was really fun. It was physically a challenge.
Yeah, how do you harvest kelp for those of
So
us who haven't done it?
yeah, you go out, and you pull the lines out of the water, and you cut it off with a knife, and you cut it into the boat, and then we haul it to land. And how we had it set up was Mike was in the boat with one of our volunteers. His name's Peter, and he's always helping us out. And my dad and I were on shore, and my dad and I would take it to our greenhouse where we were drying it, and we just started hanging it to dry it. And the beautiful thing in our community is everyone wants to help us. So we're not making enough money yet to pay people, but we have zero shortage of hands. And we just let everyone know, like, hey, we have to hang and dry 1,500 pounds of kelp. Who's in? And we had a ton of people show up and just start helping us hang that kelp and get it dried out so that we could store it and start selling it.
And where are we going to be able to find the kelp? When you mentioned distribution, where will it be found?
Yeah, so far in Washington State, the kelp farmers that are here are putting kelp. Well, I'll just talk about us. We're selling some of our kelp to a person who makes personal care products, so soaps and lotions, face masks. We are selling some to a company that makes spices. So they mix kelp with different seasonings to make spices. And then we just had someone contact us who wants to buy it to make a food product that is, I'm not exactly sure what it is yet because I haven't tried it, but it's a Russian dish that
Hmm.
she's going to make it and preserve it. So I'm excited to try that. Yeah. And as soon as those products have actually used the kelp, I don't know if they've incorporated our kelp yet into their products. We'll put them up on our website. So I want to wait till it's actually in there and they're selling their product with our kelp in it, and then we'll start marketing those a little bit. So
That sounds very exciting, and a variety of ways to use kelp as well. And then mentions diversification, not just with the kelp, but there's the shellfish as well. How did you pick shellfish, and how does that work? How do you farm that?
yeah, so it's a really common farming tactic to farm shellfish and kelp together.
Okay.
They complement each other. They grow really well together. We grow on a system where we're suspending lines 8 feet below the surface of the water. And both the shellfish and the kelp really thrive in that environment. As I mentioned, we have these strong currents going through, so the shellfish get a ton of nutrients as the currents move nutrients through the water. So it just they very much complement each other, and again buffer us from financial difficulty if one crop happened to not work
Hmm.
one year. Yeah.
You mentioned, Gretchen, earlier that this is rather aquaculture and broadly is still very nascent in the U.S. So why is it emerging? And just from your own perspective, what's your outlook for it here when it
Yeah,
comes to food production, especially as we look at the numbers of the growing population globally for food production, need for food production? Yeah.
right. Yeah, so I think aquaculture in the United States has been pretty prevalent. It's a pretty big industry, but actual sugar kelp farming is
Hmm.
very new. And I think it's just going to, the industry is going to grow. It's really growing in Washington State. We've seen 3 farms come in the last, I think we all, in the last few years, we've got 3 farms. We've got one more coming. I know a lot of people are interested. And then, as I mentioned, we have a lot of farming happening up in British Columbia, but also in Alaska and the East Coast. And so the real challenge, I think, is to start getting people used to eating sugar kelp or used to the idea of eating sugar kelp. We do eat a lot of seaweed in the United States. Most of it is imported, obviously. And so people are used to eating nori is the big one that a lot of people eat. Kids have it as snacks in their lunch boxes, and we eat it with sushi. And um, so we need to start looking at ways to familiarize people with eating kelp.
Yeah,
And
I love that. I mean, there's a educational process, right, in communicating what is sugar kelp. So when you describe it to somebody who just has no idea, it sounds amazing. But how do you describe it to them, and how do they eat it? How do they cook it?
yeah, so there we cook it all the time. We cook it all the time, of course. So sugar kelp is basically a brown algae, and it has a little holdfast, which looks like sort of the roots of a plant or a tree, and then a stipe, which looks like a stem, and then it has the blade, which is like the big leaf. And the part you eat is the blade. And the way that there are a lot of people use it in like a salad. People have been eating sugar kelp in the Pacific Northwest forever because the Native American tribes ate a lot of sugar
Mhm.
kelp. So people use it in a lot of different ways. A lot of people cook it by just doing a quick blanch and making a salad out of it. A lot of people dry it and use it as a seasoning. It's in a lot of soups. It's usually more of an accompaniment than a main dish.
Mhm.
So it's something that you'll just add a little bit of. It has a lot of flavor, and to get the health benefits, you don't need a ton of it. And I think a lot of people have this a little bit of a like, wait, what is it when you see it because it's growing in the water, and it's like a beautiful brownish golden color. When you blanch it, it turns this gorgeous bright green,
Mm.
and it's really good. I mean, I eat it straight out of the water as we're harvesting. I really like the taste. It's got like an umami flavor, a seafood flavor. It pairs really well if you're making mussels or clams. I
Mm.
put it in sweet stuff because I like things like chocolate with a sea salt. So
Mm.
I'll make a chocolate ice cream or a chocolate chip cookie, and I'll put a little bit of sugar kelp, and it just gives it a nice bit of a salty flavor.
That sounds delicious. I'm assuming you also like to cook.
I do like to cook. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
In terms of the back to the farm part of it, the creating the farm, the equipment. What kind of equipment or setup do you need for sugar kelp farming?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of equipment in the beginning, and then not very much. So when you set up a sugar kelp farm, this is the part where you really have to rely on engineers and spend some money because you need that thing to be in the water. You need it to be solid, right? You don't want it moving around in the water. And so we hired a firm out of British Columbia that has designed quite a few sugar kelp farms or kelp farms. And they basically engineer a farm that will withstand a 100-year storm.
Oh, wow.
So, the odds of a 100-year storm happening are very slim to none. But our farm, if it did happen, it will stay where it is. And it's basically a series of anchors and chains and ecology blocks that hold it in place. And those go have a line up
Mm-hmm.
to the surface where we have a series of buoys on the top of the water that float on the top, and they hold our grow lines 8 feet underwater. Um, so when you look at a sugar kelp farm, all you see are these buoys. You don't see anything else that's happening underneath the water. You don't see the crops growing. You
Mm-hmm.
don't see the infrastructure, but that's what's down there.
That's amazing. So, how do you increase the crop production at the farm and also be, I mean, environmentally friendly? We talked a lot about your commitment, right, to the environment and health and wellness and so forth. So, tell us a little bit like increasing the crop production and also balancing that out with the natural environment as well. There,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Great question. So again, one of the beautiful things about sugar kelp farming and oyster farming is there are no inputs. So you're never putting fertilizers in the water. You're not using fresh water. At the same time, both of those crops are filtering the water. The mussels are the oysters are filtering the water as it comes through. They're taking algae out of the water, and they are taking nitrogen out of the water. And the sugar kelp is taking nitrogen out of the water, and it's taking carbon out of the water, and it's taking phosphorus out of the water. And then it's putting oxygen back in the water. So both of those things are really
Hmm.
increasing the clarity of the water, and they're really benefiting the water quality. And so if you look at sugar kelp farms, if you do water testing around them, especially when they also have oysters with them, you
Hmm.
see what's called a halo effect, where the water around the sugar kelp and oysters tends to be maybe a little bit cooler, a little bit clearer, and the water quality tends to be a little bit better.
Oh.
So with kelp farming, the more the better. So we can increase, which we will do this year. As I mentioned, we grew one line last season. This season, we'll be growing 15 lines of kelp. And
Hmm.
so as we grow more kelp, the water quality in that area will get better.
Oh, wow. So, what I'm
We don't
hearing,
we
yeah.
don't have to worry about a negative impact on water
Hmm.
quality.
Hmm.
And another thing we look at is habitat, and we also are creating habitat, so we don't have to worry about a negative impact on habitat. We do watch for it. We want to make sure we're not shading kelp that is native. And we do that by taking a lot of photographs and just documenting
Hmm.
the native kelp that's on the bottom to make sure that we are in no way shading that kelp to cause it to not be able to grow as well. But in the what other farmers are seeing and then what we're seeing is that we're really helping the habitat of the area thrive.
Hmm. It almost seemed like everybody should have a sugar kelp farm, right? And it increases the quality of the water, the cleanliness of it as well. And you visit schools, correct, or community groups? Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how do you raise awareness about the upshots, the upsides to sugar kelp farming?
Yeah, so the biggest way that we raise awareness is things like this. We've been on NPR, we've been in a few magazines, and then just talking to people. We went to a seaweed festival a couple weekends ago. That was the first annual seaweed festival in Washington State.
Hmm.
And we just had people coming through, and we're very enthusiastic about it. And so we just talk to people about it, and they get really interested. And then they want to come out and visit the farm. Everywhere we are, we're talking about it. People ask us about it all the time. And so we've ended up being asked to go to a few classrooms and teach different age groups about
Mm.
sugar kelp and oyster farming. And then we've lectured at a couple universities in our area at marine bio programs about sugar kelp farming and oyster farming and a technical college. So
Oh, wow.
essentially, people will hear about us and ask us to come and talk to them. And we never say no.
Hmm. So, you mentioned that there are volunteers, right, in the community who helped harvest and so forth. I imagine with the talks with the various schools and the maybe colleges, do you have some young people interested in also farming along? Do you have interns in the summer, or how does that work?
Yeah, so our first intern was one of our kids. She went to a science and math institute close by. And so she and one of her classmates interned for us. And so every year since then, we've had interns. And yeah, we continually have people from, from 12 years old to my dad's 85, my mom's 82, my mother-in-law's 91. She'll be out there with us on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And then everything in between. We have tons of people emailing us, contacting us through our website, or they just know us and ask us if they can come and volunteer. And unfortunately, we never have enough for people to do, but we really, when we have stuff to do, we try to include everyone because we really appreciate, people being interested in working with us and interested in this field, in this industry. So
And you're also a filmmaker, correct? As well, you do video production and also films. And so, how have you told the story, or maybe communicated more about sugar kelp farming using video and film?
yeah, so we made one short film ourselves. We used a director named Anna Lewick, and Anna had made a film about seaweed farming in general, and she ended up interviewing us. And so we called her back and had her come in and just film and document us putting the farm into the water because there was a lot of interest in how we were going to do that, and there were a lot of people involved. And right now I'm working on getting funding to do a documentary style film about regenerative farming, not just sugar kelp farming, but different types of regenerative farming. So,
So we'll
um,
stay tuned for
yeah,
the
stay
video
tuned.
and the
Hopefully that'll be
films
coming soon.
as well.
Yeah.
Back to increasing the crop production. I know that this was your first year, and then you're moving into the second year, correct, as well. So how do you increase production? What are your plans to increase production, and how do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have three sets of anchors, so six anchors, and the way they're set up, we'll have two anchors that have lines coming up to the surface with buoys strung in between them. And on those buoys, we can hang what's called an array, and it's a spreader bar on each side. I don't know if you get, it's a spreader bar on each side with the potential to string five lines across each
Mm.
of those spreader bars. And so this year we just had the one line, like I said, just to test it out. But next year we'll fill those spreader bars with five lines each. And our permit allows us to have three spreader bars systems
Mm.
or three array systems that each can hold five lines.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's
So,
how we'll increase it. We'll fill those arrays with five lines each, and we'll plant on all 15 lines. And then we'll also hang those with our oyster baskets. So we're growing Kumamoto oysters right now, but we'll add Pacific oysters and Olympia oysters to that mix.
mhm. In terms of growth, for the farm and, and sugar kelp farming as well, what is your own crystal ball as to where do you want to be maybe like 1 year from now and then 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good. So 1 year from now, um, we will happily be farming those 14 additional lines. And in 5 years, I think we've got a 10-acre site, but we're only, those 15 lines will just be farming around 1 acre. So I'd like to fill out that farm and farm all of the farmable area within that 10 acres. And from there, hopefully get permitted for another farm. And the ultimate goal is to have 2 or 3 farms.
2 or 3 farms, so increase the acreage as
Increase the
well.
acreage or have them in a few different locations that are close by.
Hmm.
So have 2 to 3 10-acre farms.
Now, is there, Gretchen, a community of sugar kelp farmers? I mean, often in agricultural communities, or industries, right? You have specific boards for types of
Yes.
crops. I'm curious, what's the community like?
Yeah, so this is a great thing about sugar kelp farming right now in Washington State. It's very much a team sport. As I mentioned, there are 3 farms that are operating right now, and we have a fourth that's going to come online soon. And we all work together. We meet as a group about once a week. We have a lot of support from Green Wave, and we get support from an organization called Maritime Blue.
Hmm.
Um, they support innovators in the blue economy. And we are working together to identify potential uses for sugar kelp and just support each other's farms, and share information. So it's definitely a type of farming where you want to work together with other sugar kelp farmers.
So, what do you love most about your job? I imagine that there is a lot of there's a lot of work, right, that goes into starting up any company, and this is
Yeah.
physical labor as well. So what is driving you to this?
Oh, that's our hard because I mean, there are a lot of things I love about it. So yes, it's a lot of work, but it's really fun work. And right now, like after we talk, I'm gonna head out to the farm, and it's a beautiful day out, and we just being out there is really inspiring, and it's relaxing, and it's exciting. I love that we're creating a food source that is incredibly healthy, and it's very good for human health, but as I mentioned, it's also great for habitat, and it's great for water quality. Um, and I love being part of an industry that's new. We're starting this industry that is a way for people to make money while at the same time supporting the health and well-being of the Puget Sound. I grew up in this area. I love this area. I'll always live here. And I have a really strong interest in keeping it healthy, keeping the animals that live here healthy, helping the people who live here stay healthy. So it's like I'm getting to do something fun, and I'm also getting to do something great for my this area that I live in.
And it sounds like it is a very, it draws a community, but also it's a family affair, right? You mentioned like
Yeah.
your mother-in-law and all that. Has it,
Yeah.
in your case, has it become a family? It's a family affair
Yeah,
that brought people together.
it's a family business for sure. And
Hmm.
Mike and I do most of the work, but the kids get very involved. We have 3 kids, and 2 of them, well, they all live away from home now. 2 are in California, one's in Seattle, but they're back quite often. And when they're here, they're helping out because they like to. And then my parents both live here, and they love working. They just always want to help us. They're always helping us. We try not to overwork them. And but I think it's keeping them pretty young, and it's fun to be out there with them and have them involved.
And finally, what do you think is needed to further spotlight sugar kelp? In terms of having folks understand what it is, or maybe be open to it. It sounds like there are so many benefits to it, including sort of maybe the nutritional aspect of it or the wellness aspect of it. What do you think is needed?
I think it's just exposure. I think that when people start to understand the benefits of it, which in our area, I'm starting to see that happen, then people want to start to use it in one way or another, right? They want to use it in their personal care products. They want to eat it. They want to use it in their cooking, or they might want to use it for. I know there's a lot of pet foods with sugar kelp in them.
Mm.
There are a lot of agricultural products that use sugar kelp. So it really comes down to awareness, and that's one of our big jobs. Is we just try to spread awareness about sugar kelp and the benefits wherever we go.
Well, thank you very, very much, Gretchen, for your time and sharing your story and with us, and also the insight and sharing more about sugar kelp farming. And excited to hear about what will happen right the next season. So we're going to sign off until the next episode. Please check out the new podcast, Women Innovators in Food and Farming. Thank you very, very much, Gretchen, for your time
Thank you. Thanks for
today.
having me. It was great.